Welcome back, everybody. Here we are again, another Q&A with Dr. J and GC. And for those of you who are caretakers, this episode is for you, especially if you're the one that always ends up being the caretaker or always the one that people lean on. Just naturally, that becomes your role. Now, I didn't know anything about this possibly having a genetic link, but Dr. J is going to tell us it clearly does. And that could be really helpful for people to know.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way either. And I started doing a little research on this because I'm one of those people who I can't say no. And everybody always leans on me, Jay will do it. And so I'm like, what? Why am I just designed that way? It was very informative to me too, to know that there were some genetic reasons for why we do that. And that isn't no sucks to be you, but there are things you can do, and not just emotional work, but also physiological work that gives you a better sense of boundaries.
So there is a genetic link to boundaries, having problems setting them or being good at setting them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We used to think that empathy was purely a nurture versus nature kind of thing, but now we know better for sure because there are those oxytocin receptor variants, and we'll talk about those, along with some other dopamine variants that play into this and vasopressin, which we really haven't talked about much, but it plays into this as well. And hormones. The just a tidbit going forward, and you can take this to the bank because it's interesting. But the opposite of oxytocin, oxytocin is our love hormone, and it's our desire to nurture and love people. And when we hug somebody, we get an oxytocin hit. When we give birth, massive amount of oxytocin is secreted that makes us bond to our children so tightly. And it's also involved in how our uterus contracts to squeeze out a baby. Women, obviously, higher in oxytocin. So the opposite molecule is testosterone. And so the higher the testosterone, the lower the oxytocin. So men naturally are going to have lower oxytocin. They're less caretakers. That's not to say there aren't some really caring men who will help out, but they're not the ones who take it all on and sacrifice their own health for the most part. That's a generalization, but it's usually women that do this. And so there are certain variants that create a nervous system that's neurologically more attuned to others' distress. And so it's not a weakness, it's not a trauma response, it's just how the brain is built and how the hormones kind of work in our bodies and brains. So it's fascinating.
It really is. So what genes are you going to bring up for us?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked. The first one is the one that we just mentioned, the oxytocin receptor. There are several of the OXTR genes, and if you look at your genetic variants, but you can also look at your risk slider for empathy. So the more into the green you are on that risk slider, the more empathetic you are, the higher the oxytocin levels, and you're going to have a high sensitivity. So you absorb others' emotional states almost involuntarily. And when I talk to people, when I do the consultations, and I see that slider into the green, I'm like, wow, you definitely take on other people's energy. And they're like, yeah, I do. I have to go off by myself to remember who I am and who they are to separate the boundaries. And so that's a big part of this. And as women age, we get higher testosterone levels and lower oxytocin. So the shift happens as we get older. So we get better boundaries, which is nice. And for men, it's shifting too the other way. Their oxytocin goes up and their testosterone goes down. So they tend to get a little more empathetic as they get older. And so it's a nice place to meet in the middle. And older men, you'll notice that they are a little more weepy and a little more empathetic and feeling. So it's just a fascinating thing. The MAO gene that regulates serotonin and dopamine, there's a neurochemical payoff from helping, soothing, or fixing. And this is true for men too. And men are more the fixers. And so they get a dopamine hit by doing something that helps somebody and fixes somebody. And so not good maybe at listening because their oxytocin isn't as high. But when they fix something, and that's why when we talk to them and we try to describe our feelings, they want to fix us
I want
because
to fix it. Yeah.
it's just it's a neurochemical kind of thing. And it's just fascinating to think about. For some people, not helping feels genuinely uncomfortable to them beyond social conditioning, but they need that hit of dopamine to feel like they're useful. And it can be from that genetic variant. So it's fascinating.
I understand what you're saying about that. We were talking off mic about thinking it was because I was the oldest. And then there was a dysfunction in the house, like the oldest wants to take care of everything. But now I'm going to go look at my genes. Maybe it's just that I always want to jump in and help somebody do whatever they need done.
Yeah. I don't know where your empathy genes are. I think they're probably a little
Mine are
more.
pretty good. I
Are
mean,
they good?
I'm a greenie.
Are you? But you seem to have better boundaries, I think,
I
than
think that's a learned thing.
is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then some of the other genes, the DRD4, this is a dopamine receptor in the brain. It's designed for high social reward, I can't, reward, satisfaction tied strongly to relationships and a role within them. And so when loved ones struggle, you struggle. And that somehow gives you a biochemical hit of dopamine and satisfies that receptor that's sitting there going, hey, I need some dopamine. So it's interesting. And then there are some genes that are linked to difficulty setting boundaries. So that's going to play into it too. And I have to say, I have had that issue during my life. I have a hard time saying no. And then add that to the empathy and my low adrenals, and it's not a good combo. I tend to just go and go until I give out. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I talk to a lot of, especially women, that do that, sacrifice their own health for others. So if you have a high oxytocin receptor and a strong MAO reward response, your nervous system is going to read others' distress as your responsibility. Boundary setting is a learned behavior, as you say, and it's worthwhile knowing if this is you, it's really worthwhile getting some support, maybe from a counselor or doing some emotional work to really work on that, because you may be designed to just exhaust yourself by worrying about other people and taking care of other people. Boundary setting for them triggers a genuine threat response. It's not a weakness, it's actually biology.
Uh,
So it's a fascinating way to think about that. Like we're designed to thrive better in groups. When we're isolated and we're by ourselves, we're very vulnerable. And thinking about our ancestry back in caveman days, if you were out by yourself, you're incredibly vulnerable to whatever, bears and mountain lions or whatever. And we were designed with oxytocin that binds our communities together and keeps us safe. And so if you set a boundary and somebody says, I don't like that, you're out of here, that can trigger a genuine threat response, as I was saying. In some people, it's going to be more exaggerated. And then the COMT gene that we've talked about a lot, a low activity means the emotional experiences linger and they're going to carry disappointment long after the moment. And so they get hurt easily.
hmm.
And they PTSD also, if it's a particularly traumatic event, that adrenaline stays in their system longer and it solidifies memories and experiences and they hold on to them much longer. So, and for them, anticipating somebody being upset feels genuinely threatening, not just uncomfortable, but a threat to them. And so it's interesting to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could be, it's somewhere, it's that fine line. It's a gift on the one hand to be helping and loving and concerned, and yet
Yeah.
to our own detriment if we don't learn how to manage that always on response.
Yeah, very much. And we're going to do coming up another episode with the adrenals, and because this ties right into it, how we exhaust our adrenals when we have these kind of profiles showing up. And I just added a new slider into our reports that shows whether you're susceptible to low adrenal gland function or you have robust adrenals. And it makes a big difference in your life. Just a preview of coming attractions, but I have my adrenals tend to get exhausted pretty easily and my blood pressure will drop. And so sometimes it'll drop down to 90 over 60. And it's not fun because, yeah, you may live forever because you have low blood pressure, but you're not going to feel good for the rest of your life. So it's not fun, no energy and exhaustion, and you stand up too quickly and you're dizzy. My brother has the opposite. He's got the high blood pressure genes that my mother had. And when I looked at his slider, his adrenaline slider is really low and mine's really high. So the risk of adrenal dysfunction in me is higher than my brother. And obviously, he got my mom's genes in that category. So it's interesting.
I'm really glad you're doing an adrenal one because I keep seeing more. My feed on Instagram is a lot of doctors. That's what I follow, so I get more and more. as opposed to just influencers. And there are so many doctors who say that adrenal fatigue is fake. Adrenal fatigue is not.
Oh,
Adrenal fatigue is impossible, right? There, it doesn't have any impact on you. And so I'm really, we can just blast out the real information. There are a lot of people contesting what they're saying. They've got their scrubs on and their little MD plaque on the wall. And I know that's probably a lot of people's experience. They go to the doctor and they say, I think I have adrenal fatigue. Yeah.
yeah, well, they don't have any answers for it, so it
Well,
doesn't
that's true.
exist.
Yeah. You have some answers, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with that one.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to say about it than we have
Yeah,
said
I'm
in the
sure.
past. Yeah. So anyway, back to this topic of
You
taking
think
on
we
other
got off
people.
track?
Yeah, we did. It was on track, but off track. And it shows up differently in midlife too. Demands stack up, and you got aging parents and adult kids and partner transitions, and that's peak career time. So it stacks up and becomes more of a problem at that point. When you're young and virile and your hormones are at their peak and you're like, yeah, bring it. I can do all of that. And then as the estrogen levels drop for women and testosterone levels drop for men, we don't have that as much stamina and strength, but we're still trying to do it all. And it really can take a toll. Yeah.
So, what kind of support do you suggest for people who find that they have this
Ooh, that's a
combination of genes?
good question. You have good questions. So, first of all, knowing what your genetic wiring is removes some of the shame and gives you some understanding. So you can go, oh, poof, I am so susceptible to this. I really need to make myself a priority and
Mm,
set better boundaries and get rest and make sure I sleep on time. Your sleep hygiene is really important here, time outside, etc. But it's just removing the shame around it that you can't do everything. It turns out those pesky little human limitations are real. So,
yeah, and setting boundaries is not easy when you're not used to doing it. You will
right.
feel better, even though it's hard. Some people won't like it, but whatever.
Yeah, and Mel Robinson talks about let them. I don't know if you've read her.
Yeah, I know I didn't buy the book.
Yeah, I get it. I didn't buy it either, but I get the concept.
Yeah, they do so much marketing around her stuff that I was like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
I get the let them thing. Okay, that's good to hear.
me too. Because I
Yeah.
hear that in my brain now.
Oh, do you?
Just let them.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
have to rescue everybody. What? And then getting your brain balance so that your brain isn't going, yeah, but I need that dopamine hit to fix somebody and be there, and I need that. And so if you get the MAO variants balanced and your serotonin levels are in the right area and your adrenaline is in the right area, that's really helpful. And we've talked a lot about supporting the COMT and the MAO variants. And if you can listen to the last video, we talked about how to directly support those. And just reframing the boundaries are not selfishness. And you're actually doing a good service to your family. If they've been relying on you way too much and you've been doing way too much, you're crippling them too. And if you're exhausted, you're not going to be there for them when they
Right.
really need it. So it's a win-win. I know we all know that intellectually, but getting your genes and your biochemistry balanced allows you to do that with a little more strength. And I have to say, we talked about the testosterone going up for women and estrogens going down in midlife. And you can also add some support in the testosterone area. And I've had people come in when I was practicing and they'd start crying, especially around midlife. And wow, what's going on? And it was just overload. They were just exhausted. And I often would give them some support, some testosterone support. There's some supplements and herbs that help balance that. And it made a huge difference. It gave them better boundaries, more stamina, more strength, and more fortitude to stand up for themselves. And they would come back in going, wow, I feel better and stronger. And even elderly people, I was putting them on that, and it just made a huge difference because all of our hormones as we age go down. And even in men, we were giving them some products that helped increase testosterone, and it was giving them their mojo back. And so it was really fun to see them come alive again.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and testosterone is not just for sex.
No, it's not. And too much is not good, and you'll start breaking out, that's not fun either, but you'll go back into puberty again. Or you'll get
No,
really
please, dear God, no.
or you'll get really irritable again. But anyway, so the point is you became a caretaker because your brain is wired for attunement. It's a profound gift, but those gifts need tending to. And absolutely, you're right, upbringing can add to this. And I know for a lot of people, living in an alcoholic environment makes them much more likely to be a caretaker. Something like 80% of nurses and doctors are
Oh,
don't
really?
alcoholic. Yeah, it's a really high percentage.
Huh.
So we know that your environment adds to that too.
Absolutely, just the way it does with everything, you know.
Yeah. But is
So,
that gene or is that environment? Like
right.
parents had those genes too, so you have? I don't
So
know.
now we have to, instead of just saying nurture and nature, we have to say nurture, nature, genetics, biochemistry.
There you go.
There you go. I'm going to plaster that all over.
You can make a bumper sticker out of that.
Yeah. After I get my t-shirt that says save the gallbladders, okay? I'm not doing anything till I get that t-shirt.
I want
All
one.
right, people. We will be back on Just as Silly next week with another Q&A with Dr. J. Thanks, Dr. J.
Thanks, TC.